Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope a Dope Report. I'm your host, Chris Carlson. I'm back with another live stream upload. This one pertains to a fight that recently got made. Just what was it, Saturday? Daniel Jacobs versus Gennady Golovkin. Obviously, most people think that Gennady Golovkin is the number one middleweight in the world. I think he's proven it in the ring. And it's not like he hasn't tried to secure fights with Billy Joe Saunders or Eubank Jr. or other middleweights out there. Obviously, the Canelo debacle still lingers. Hopefully, they can get that fight done for September. But I'm happy to say that this fight got done. I'll be honest, I'm not crazy about the fact that it's on pay-per-view, but you're not going to hear me complain that it's on pay-per-view either, right? At least it's a legitimate fight. You can make the case, I guess you could argue it, of course, but you can make the case that Daniel Jacobs is probably the second best middleweight out there. I think for sure top five. But you can make a case that he's the second best, so then you'd have number one against number two. And even if you don't think he's number two at middleweight, that's fine, but it's a legitimate fight. And that's what a lot of people have wanted to see with Golovkin. We want to see him, go against the best in his division or just in general, right? There really hasn't been a lot of competition for him. Obviously, what is Golovkin's best fight that he's faced? What's the best fighter? Some people would probably say Kell Brook. He did have plenty of success, although the fight didn't go that long. He did have success. He won 2 rounds in that fight, I thought. But he was a welterweight. He was coming up in weight. And I know that he's a huge, huge welterweight, right? And maybe he should just go to junior middleweight in general. Obviously, the names and the money, for the most part anyway, there's more of that at welterweight. But, I could see that. As far as middleweight, though, maybe David Lemieux. Of course, the argument could be made that it was Marco Antonio Rubio who actually beat Lemieux, TKO'd him. There's also an argument that I don't know how many people would think Curtis Stevens is. His run at middleweight has been good, better than it was at 168, I'd say for sure, but he hasn't done anything to separate himself at the weight too much, in my opinion. But he does have a lot of power. Matthew Macklin, of course, was definitely in that fight for quite a while with Sergio Martinez, right? Murray, right? Maybe Murray is, because Murray once again was in that fight with an injured, definitely a fading Martinez, but you could have given him that fight or maybe a draw. I think Kasim Uma had the most success for the longest in a fight. That's what I think. But as of right now, I'd probably say Danny Jacobs is the second best fighter at middleweight. And most of that is based solely off the Peter Quillen outcome. The fact that he sparked Peter Quillen, who most people would have thought he's a top 5 fighter. That Andy Lee fight was very tight. That could have went either way. I didn't mind the draw in that one. Like I said, Billy Joe Saunders in his last fight looked like crap with that long layoff, but when he, coming off that Andy Lee fight where I think the knockdown won him the fight, you could make an argument that some of the skills that he has as an outside boxer could make him, and with the Andy Lee win, he could maybe be the second best one. But I think the fact that Quillen got sparked out in round 1, no matter what you feel about the stoppage, I don't think anybody. In fact, I think it's fact. In fact, I think it's fact. I don't think anybody really has a better win at middleweight. You could say quality-wise, as far as like contender level quality fighters, nobody elite. And I'm not calling Jacobs elite either, but you could probably say, well, you could definitely say that Golovkin has gone through more quality guys at middleweight than Danny Jacobs and many other guys. But there's a strong argument that this is his hardest fight per se, and it's because he's a true middleweight, and he probably is the most powerful guy. Now, you could also say that about Rubio, but it's about how you deliver the punches from Danny Jacobs to Rubio. A little bit more speed. He can actually move a little bit more. He's a little less stiff. Neither guy is good defensively, Jacobs or Rubio. But like I said, you can make an argument that Rubio is the most powerful guy, punching power that Gennady's faced, and maybe Jacobs isn't. But I think the way he delivers it, for me anyway, makes him a little bit more dangerous, I'd say. So this is a great matchup. And I've been talking a lot about Golovkin. Let's talk about Danny Jacobs a little bit more. Actually, recently, I checked out that Pirog fight, from, what was it, about 6 years ago. I think it was 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And Pirog, by the way, coming forward, Pirog's a hell of a fighter. I'm not sure who's a better fighter, Golovkin or Pirog. I would have loved that fight. And it does suck. Pirog came off such a great win at that time, and then obviously injuries, I believe, to his back. He never was quite the same guy and never could really regain his form and had to retire. So that does suck for Dmitry Pirog, by the way. But I'm not sure who's a better fighter. I would have loved to seen that Gennady Golovkin Pirog fight. They both are good come-forward fighters. They both are very powerful. Both are very skillful. They, mix and match their punches. They mix them up very well. They'll concentrate on the body and the head. They throw a nice jab. For me, because we didn't see Pirog against really too many other middleweights, because he was just really getting going with his career, getting started, for the quality part anyway. So maybe he's not as good as come forward fighter, but to me, I think he is, and this is why, because defense. I think defensively he's a little bit more sound. He moves his head more. He's just better defensively, in my opinion, than Golovkin. Okay, but kind of going with the Jacobs style, he can come at you, Daniel Jacobs, obviously. But he also can do some things on the outside. You saw it in the Pirog fight a little bit. Well, you saw, he was on the outside the whole fight, actually. But some of it was successful. Other times it wasn't successful. Ultimately, it wasn't, clearly, from the outcome. But even although it's not even around, even that fight with Quillen, you can see him doing some things where he's a little bit more patient. And, to be fair, Gennady Golovkin, when he did face a bigger puncher in a David Lemieux, the jab came out, he pumped that, and was very careful. So who's to say he wouldn't do the same thing when it comes to Danny Jacobs, right? Fight that fashion. And that may be, my guess is that's exactly what they're going to come out with. I'll break down a little bit more of how Daniel Jacobs should face, what style, maybe a mixture of styles, but just breaking down that Pirog, some notes from it. And I'll just go round by round since it really wasn't, that long of a fight. The counter right hands and the jab to the body, I thought were very telling throughout the fight, but especially in the first two rounds from Pirog, especially that first round. He hit him with a great right hand. And Jacobs was on the move, but he really wasn't landing anything significant. Nothing really hard. Second round, flush right hand, lands, left hooks, especially to the body, great uppercuts. He had Jacobs on the ropes early in that fight, and that's not a good sign if Triple G can do the same thing. If the first couple rounds consist of Jacobs getting on the ropes, I don't see how that's a good scenario for him. And it wasn't for him against P-Rog in the first 2 rounds. However, I thought his defense and the movement had more purpose. It kind of lacked purpose in the first couple rounds. I thought there was more purpose to it. He was circling, but he was also scoring points and being busier and active, especially in the fourth round. He was also mixing in southpaw to orthodox. Now, sometimes that could be a mistake. Other times, especially if it's just naturally in your footwork, where let's say maybe you're at a disadvantage in one of the styles and you switch that way, or you switch that way to land a certain punch, or you find something that's working and you stick with it. Consistently switching, not many guys can do that. I'd say Terrence Crawford is a guy that can definitely do that. We see Lomachenko once in a while, but I'd say Crawford is the best at it as we speak right now in modern day, or at least up there. But in the fourth round, he was moving well, Jacobs. He was back to using his jab, which kind of contained P-Rog. Obviously, this is a big note, and it usually is in these type of fights, but the jab will be key for both guys. But he was also throwing combinations and landing instead of just scoring like he did in the third round. So I thought the fourth round was actually his best round, but that didn't really matter because a jab and a perfectly timed right hand right on the kisser just laid out Jacobs. And for those people that say, he was going to be able to get up, okay, that's cool, but you don't lay on the ground the way he was. His eyes weren't closed. Maybe he was even looking at the ref, but you have to. He went down and was motionless for a while. Then he moved he kind of adjusted his body for a second, and then he still sat there and laid there, I should say, and he didn't move his head off the canvas. It's just one of those things. I think you got to be taught, if you're going to be in that position where you're going to just lay in the same spot and not really move and not even move to like a knee or nothing, you got to at least be looking right at the ref and communicating. Like, I'm good. We're going to be, something. Now, he communicated really well after the guy called it off, but I thought he was, I didn't have a problem with the stoppage. Let's put it that way. Getting in real quick to how he should fight, I think he should probably mix it up. I don't think it's Daniel Jacobs' strength to be on the outside at all times moving. Now, maybe that won't get him knocked out as quick, but maybe it will, because it's not his comfort zone always to be on the outside for a whole fight. So, like he did against P-Rog, he showed some really good things on the outside, but he also showed some problems. And defensively speaking, on the outside and the inside, it's no secret that Jacobs has problems. When he comes forward, at times he goes for the knockout too much. Once he gets a guy hurt, do you let him off the chain? No. Or let him off the hook, I should say. No. But you don't go crazy either, and especially against a puncher like Golovkin. So if Danny sees a guy hurt like he did Quillen and jumped right on him, I still thought it was somewhat responsible. And it really matters how hurt a guy is, obviously, But to me, I think he should mix it up. I think what he was able to do in rounds 3 and 4 and some other fights once in a while is use the jab and be on the outside and circle and use lateral movement and score and try to keep him off balance. I think that is, I think that's good. However, I think you got to be able to push Golovkin back too, and you got to get on the inside to not just land punches, but to stay away from the end of a punch from Golovkin as well. Not that he can't shorten up his shots, because we've seen that as well. So I think it's a great style matchup. A lot of power when they enter the ring. What is it, March 18th? A lot of power in that ring. And like I said, the athleticism, the hand speed, and at times he can really land that just great punch where it hurts you or you're going to be knocked out, that type of thing. Really hurt you, Jacobs can. Both guys can, obviously. But that's what I think Jacobs bring is just I don't know. And I don't see him like Lemieux, even if he's losing a fight. I don't see him fighting like Lemieux did, where a jab's just going to keep him on the outside, and he didn't really ever get aggressive and just go for it. We didn't see that from Lemieux. I think no matter what, we'll see that from Daniel. Not to say that he'll start all aggressive, because I do think he has to be smart and be patient, but at some point he's going to have to push Golovkin back. We got to see him on his back foot and see how he does there, because his comfort level is either right in the middle of the ring like he did with Lemieux, using that jab and opening up power shots and giving what the defense gives him, right, to use a football term. But also we got to see him get Golovkin out of his comfort zone. He's got to push him back, because he's a pretty good come forward fighter as well. Like I said, sometimes, though, he gets reckless and he tries to go for that big punch and he gets caught with the punch. We've seen it, and it doesn't really look like his chin can stand up for it. I'm not necessarily – this is just kind of a breakdown preview, not doing a 100% prediction here. I'm leaning Golovkin by KO, though. I guess I need a little bit more time to think about it, but it's not really about rethinking about it. Obviously camp stories and rumors can be, complete nonsense, but also some things once in a while can come out that make you change your mind. I don't really see any of that happening, but like I said, I don't see Jacobs content the way I felt Lemieux was at times. Like, just not giving 100% everything, like basically releasing all your ammo. Listen, if I'm going out and I'm down on the cards, I'm going out swinging. And we've seen Daniel Jacobs, for good or bad, right? We've seen that out of him. So I think it'll be a fun fight. I think at times it'll be an action fight. I also feel like Jacobs will do work on the outside, and I think it'll be effective, but I also think, because he's not used to it, like I said, I think that he could run into problems trying to do that too much, though. Anyway, I'm really just happy that the fight happened. Like I said, Kell Brook, maybe that's his best opponent. Maybe it's David Lemieux. Maybe it's Rubio, because, after all, Rubio did stop Lemieux, did TKO him. But right now, I think you can make an argument that this might be the best fighter with power and hand speed that he's faced that's a true middleweight. Anyway, let me know what you think. Are you favoring Golovkin like most people are? I am, because I don't know if Daniel Jacobs can stand up to the punches. He has shown some weakness there, no doubt about it. Anyway, I think it's a fun fight to watch, though. Very excited. I'm happy it's in New York City, too. Definitely, it's just good for boxing. HBO needs this. Even though it's on pay-per-view, oh well. Like I said, at least it's a legitimate fight. It's not Cotto versus Kirkland. It's not Canelo versus Liam Smith. It's not a third or fourth or a rematch fight that we don't need to see. It's a legit fight. So therefore, I'm definitely going to rent it and support it. I think it's good for boxing, and it's good for Golovkin, because he needs a guy that people know in boxing. He needs more quality wins. And the fact that a lot of people didn't think Jacobs would step in the ring with him. We've heard a lot of people popping off, a lot of fighters across all weight divisions, not just middleweight, saying, oh, I'd fight him, this, that, the other. But Daniel actually, Jacobs actually signed on the bottom line. So anyway, we got a fight. Like I said, I will do a final prediction video. But other than that, I am leaning KO for Golovkin. Anyway, you can check me out on Twitter at Rope-A-Dope Radio. Give me a follow there. Follow the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast on iTunes. You can subscribe there. You can also check it out on blogtalkradio.com/rope-a-dope radio. The podcast is live every Wednesday, but you can listen to it archive anywhere. Peace.